a thug who brutally stabbed a mother to death in front of her young daughter at the Notting Hill Carnival, has been found guilty of murder. Innocent bystander Cher Maximen, 32, was stabbed to death with a zombie knife when caught up in gang violence during the world-famous event which attracts crowds of 1 million people across the August bank holiday in West London each year. The killer, Shakeil Thibou, 20, had been attempting to target a man called Adjei Isaac when the nightmare unfolded on August 25th last year. Mr. Isaac managed to dodge the enormous blade as Thibou repeatedly tried to knife him in the stomach. But during the chaotic scenes, model Ms. Maximen was knocked to the floor, and as she struggled to her feet, Thibou raised his knife and deliberately stabbed her in the groin. Ms. Maximen, who also worked as a clothing designer, died 6 days later from her injuries on August 31st, having been attacked in front of her 3-year-old daughter. Thibou claimed he was trying to defend himself from Mr. Isaac and said he stabbed Ms. Maximen by mistake, but the jury convicted him of murder, attempting to cause grievous bodily harm to Mr. Isaac and having an offensive weapon, namely a knife. As the guilty verdict was announced, members of Ms. Maximen's family broke down in tears, with one relative shouting "yes" in relief, and her family later told Sky News, "The feeling of loss is overwhelming, but so is the feeling of rage." They continued, "She, Ms. Maximen's daughter, is aware that on that day something happened to her mother. She saw her mother drop to the floor and then she saw her mother bleed. That's the daughter's last living memory of her mother, and to live with that, knowing that that's happened, that somebody did that. That's why it's so hard, and that's where the rage comes from." Thibou's brother Shakeil Thibou, 25, was also found guilty of violent disorder and assaulting PC Oliver Mort, who tried to intervene. A third brother, 22-year-old Shakeil Thibou, was cleared of violent disorder, but convicted of assaulting PC Mort after the jury deliberated for 50 hours and 33 minutes. The Old Bailey heard that a disturbance broke out at about 5:48 p.m. between the defendants and at least 2 other males close to where Miss Maximen was standing with her group. The crowd parted as Shakeil Thibou got into a physical confrontation with the males, prompting PC Mort to step in to break it up, jurors had heard. Shakeil Thibou was holding a stun gun as he and Shaim hit out at the officer, the court heard. Meanwhile, Shakeil Thibou thrust a huge knife repeatedly towards Mr. Isaac's stomach, only missing him because the intended victim drew back. Miss Maximen was knocked to the ground after Mr. Isaac came into contact with her, and then managed to partially get to her feet, Mr. Brown said. She appeared to lift her right leg at Shakeil Thibou, who raised the knife directly towards her and deliberately stabbed her in her groin, jurors heard. Mr. Brown said, "The injuries inflicted on Ms. Maximen were fatal. The defendant had killed her. It was a truly shocking attack, and regarded as such by those around it." Judge Philip Katz, KC, excused the jurors from any further jury service for the rest of their lives, saying they had been compelled to watch every difficult footage. Speaking after the verdict was delivered, Ms. Maximen's cousin Lawrence Hu told Sky News, "I've lost my parents, I've lost my brother, nothing has felt like this ever. It is the cruelest thing, it truly is." Prosecutor Edward Brown earlier told the court, Cher Maximen was killed, and the knife, the weapon used to kill her, was wielded by the first defendant, Shakeil Thibou. Cher Maximen was visiting the carnival too. She has a daughter aged 3, and her daughter was very close by when her mother, Cher, was attacked and killed. Cher Maximen suffered a terrible injury from which she died, the knife wielded by the defendant you will see, not physically here in court as the defendant got rid of it soon after. You will see camera footage of the fatal attack itself. It is a shocking weapon to have, let alone to use, but use it the defendant did, and with devastating consequences. He killed Cher Maximen with it. Moments, and I mean moments, before he stabbed Cher Maximen, the first defendant carried out an equally horrifying attack on a man who was already retreating from him and from his knife. He was lucky. His name is Adjei Isaac. In fact, in those moments, he may not have realized, or does not now realize, the real danger he faced. He was able to retreat and just draw his body back away from the knife as the defendant Shakeil Thibou thrust it towards his stomach and abdomen more than once. There were hundreds of people in the area. The carnival was in full swing and the location was just off the actual carnival route. Around 5:48 p.m, a disturbance broke out close to, but not initially directly involving, Cher Maximen and her group, but it did involve each of the three defendants, and it would appear, at least two other males. The crowd around the defendants parted, evidently as a reaction to their violence. Sheldon and Shakeil Thibou engaged in a physical confrontation with two other males. A police officer, P.C. Mort, intervened using his baton in an attempt to break it up. Sheldon, and then Shakeil, hit out at the police officer. Sheldon Thibou was holding a stun gun in his right hand at the time. He also had another, possibly sharp or pointed object in his left hand. It was contemporaneous to those events that Shakeil Thibou was engaged directly with another man, Adjei Isaac. Shakeil had that huge knife with him, described by one witness as a zombie knife. He lunged with the knife directly at Adjei Isaac's torso, and repeatedly. Isaac tried to grab hold of Shakeil's arms, and in those moments recoiled away from the knife. The knife, with no thanks to the first defendant, just missed him, and only by a very closest of margins. What would have happened had he not instinctively recoiled, pulling his stomach away from the knife, does not need any imagination. You will see that Cher Maximen had been knocked to the ground in the immediate events as Adjei Isaac recoiled from Shakeil Thibou's knife. In his efforts to save himself from the knife attack, he had come into contact with Cher. It is clear that she had simply got caught up in the events. Shakeil stumbled over the ladies who were sitting down, including Cher, but steadied himself on the hoarding. Cher Maximen in those moments grabbed hold of Shakeil Thibou's coat, pulled it, managing to get partially to her feet. She appeared to attempt to strike out with her hand at Shakeil, who was of course still holding that knife in his hand. Cher took a step towards him, and at the same time, attempted to raise her right leg towards him. It was at this moment that Shakeil Thibou raised the knife directly towards Cher Maximen and deliberately thrust it towards her, stabbing her in the groin. The injuries inflicted on Miss Maximen were fatal. The defendant had killed her. It was a truly shocking attack, and indeed regarded as such by those around it. Miss Maximen fell backwards to the ground. Shakeil Thibou ran away, with his brothers. Shakeil's face showed pure anger when he stabbed Miss Maximen, Mr. Brown said. Police had reported that the crowds on the festival's Family Day were becoming semi-hostile in the late afternoon. When Sheldon was arrested on August 27th, a stun gun was found, along with machete knives. Shakeil was arrested in a hostel where large knives were found. He has no previous convictions, but one caution for a drug offence. Sheldon, 2 convictions for possession of cannabis in 2020 and dangerous driving in July 2024. Shakeil, from Hammersmith in West London, denied but was convicted of murder and having an offensive weapon. He was cleared of attempted murder in relation to Mr. Isaac, but convicted of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent. Sheldon, from Fulham in southwest London, was convicted of violent disorder and assault on an emergency worker. Shakeil, from West Kensington in West London, denied and was cleared of violent disorder, but was convicted of assault on an emergency worker. Shakeil will be sentenced on May 16th, while his brothers will be dealt with on a date to be fixed. Ms. Maximen's tragic death was one of 2 murders that took place around last year's Notting Hill Carnival.